your beloved instructor in this subject, Sir Anthony Gamali. Good afternoon, sir. And to my fellow classmates, good afternoon, everyone. So for today's video, was all about our subject, forensic photography, which is the chapter 6. But before I start my discussion about the chapter 6, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Dale Vincent Mayan. I am a second year BS Criminology student in Misamis Oriental Institute of Science and Technology. So, my topic for today is all about the chapter 6, the application of photography in police work. So, photography has still continued to serve a wide variety of functions in our criminal justice system. The extent of which photography can be applied in the different pillars of our criminal justice system will depend on the size of the organizations, its financial capabilities, the enthusiasm, imagination, and skills of its personnel. These are some applications which are subject of our brief discussion for a practical exercise during laboratory work to build a basic foundation, the skills of beginning, and the one who is already practices the forensic photography. So, first is the identification of purposes. Second is the recording and preserving of evidence, followed by discovering and providing evidences not readily seen by the naked eye. Fourth is the recording actions of the offenders. Fifth is the court exhibit. Sixth, for crime prevention. Number 7 is the public information. And lastly is the police training. Identification purposes includes prisoners, person subject of investigation, unidentified cabaders, missing person, loss of stolen property, and lastly is the civilian. So, first is the identification purposes. So, A is prisoners. So, these are the persons who are found guilty to the crime that they are committed. Person subject of investigation. So, these are the people who are the suspect for a certain crime. B is ununified cadavers. So, these are the unidentified dead body of a person. It might be a victim of a crime, in traffic accident, airline crash, collapse of a big building, shipwrecks, stampede, explosion, natural calamities like earthquakes, landslide, cave-in mines, tidal waves, massive flood, and etc. Missing person for publications and alert warnings, lost or stolen properties. It might be work of art, painting, sculpture, icons, antiques, expensive jewelries, rare coins or books, and etc. A is civilian, police clearance for employment, travel abroad, or other purposes. Recording and preserving evidence. First is crime scene, traffic accidents, objects of evidence, and last is the evidential trace. Number 2 is recording and preserving evidence. So, crime scene. These are the location in which crime happens, like homicide or murder, thief or robbery, arson, other crimes listed in a revised penal code, as well as other special laws, organized or syndicate crimes, cyberspace, or computer crimes. Next is traffic accident. These are the accidents that mostly happened in our public roads, highways. Objectives of evidence. So these are the evidence that might be a murder weapon or stolen property like guns, bullet or shell. So basyo sa bala, knife, clothings, shoes, other personal belongings, and etc. Evidential trace. So, mo ni siya ang katong mga fingerprints, shoe or tire prints, blood stain, katong namikit nga mga mancha sa dugo, and other body fluids. So, for example, mo ni siya ang katong, for example, rape, body fluids, katong semen sa lalaki, tool marks, bump or explosive residues, and etc. The discovering and providing of evidence not readily seen by the naked eye. A. Contrast, control by lighting, use of filters, use of different films and papers. B. Magnification, enlargement of tiny objects by the applications of photomicrography or photomacrography. Number 3 is discovering and providing of evidence not readily seen by the naked eye. So, contrast, control by lighting, use of filters, use of different films and papers. B. Magnifications of enlargement of tiny objects by the applications of photomicrography and photomacrography. So first is photomicrography. Is the taking of photograph through the microscope. The camera is attached to the eyepiece and it is the lens of the microscope that is used in photographing. Photomacrography or macrophotography is the taking of photograph with a short focus lens. It is an extreme close-up of small objects to photograph one by one or an actual size of the slightly bigger. Microphotography is a taking of a micrograph of an object is a very reduced size or tiny image of large object, for example of a microfilm. Number 4 is the recording action of the offender. First is surveillance. Surveillance is a monitoring of behavior, meaning activities of information for the purpose of information gathering. Next is entrapment. Entrapment is a defense to a criminal charge. In its base interaction between the police officer and the defendant prior to during the alleged crime. A typical entrapment scenario arises when the law enforcement officer uses coercion and other overbearing tactics to induce someone to commit a crime. Extrajudicial confession, as distinguished from infrajudicial confession, is one is made outside the court proceedings. The admissible and such confession as the evidence defense, not upon whom its evidence was made, but upon the manner in which it was obtained. Reenactment of crime. Reenactment of crime is a practice where a criminal suspects are ordered as part of the police investigation process to describe or act out of the steps of crime of which they are accused. It is claimed to help investigators visualize the crime and variety confessions. Next is the court exhibits. Individual photographs, slide projections, compression chart, motion pictures or video coverage or presentation. Number 6 is for crime prevention. Visual presentation for lectures on traffic education. Modus operandi on a con game artist. Snatchers or holduppers, civil defense, informational service, shared with the other local or foreign police organization businesses. Establishments, banks, hotels, and industrial complex security. Number 7 is public information. Every police administrator must endeavor to build a good public image on his organization and his personnel. Media coverage on sensational or high-profile crime is alright, but he must not lose sight on the often ignored by day-to-day activities on the enforcement of law, on the humanitarian service rendered like search and rescue mission during disaster and calamities. Examples are pictures of traffic policemen giving aid to an elderly or a child crossing a busy restriction, or a beat policeman doing his rounds and for withering or a empty of desolate street of night can be portray an image that in need to the police in a public servant, a protector, and a friend. Number 8, police training. prepared training films or video presentations of personnel, indoctrination, police traffics, investigative techniques, traffic control, civil disturbance, demonstration, control routes or prisons disorders, documentaries or pre and post briefings on police operations, or etc. So, by the way, what is identification photograph? Identification photograph. An identification photograph should be an accurate likeness of the subject from which you can recognize my witness, our police officer. This photograph should be strived to reproduce every mole, scars, wrinkles, and others. Crime scene photography. General consideration. The primary purpose of the crime scene photography is to provide information that will assess the successful investigation and subsequent prosecutions of the criminal case. Photography is used to permanent visual record as the exact and original location and the condition of a different aspects as someone vital evidence of proof. Hence the indispensable photographing and the crime should be done completely and accurately before the object of evidence are removed. Alert are also in the initial stages of an investigations. There are certain aspects that are not readily invent but later they are affect vital issues of the case. Generally, crime scene photography serves in the following areas: to provide the investigator and the prosecutor with an accurate pictorial presentation of the appearance and position of the objects and the scene, to aid in the questioning of the suspects and witness when their sworn statement are being taken, to present to the court an accurate pictures of the scene, thereby enabling them to understand the evidence better and evaluate intelligently and the testimony concerning the distance of the defendants and the witnesses. Photographs log. When responding to a case, record of a data regarding the circumstances surrounding and related to the picture taking of a crime scene must be noted to the instant collection. Usually, these informations written to a notebook are transferred to the original request form where the negative will be eventually be attached before entering the file. This will be facilitate the search and retrieval of the negatives when needed for recopy or for court presentation. This will likewise establish the chain of position of the original negatives and photographs print. Here are some informations needed. The photographic range. Our views can be categorized as focusing on the location of the crime. Next is concentrating on the features of the offense. Concentrating on the result of the crime. Featuring the physical evidence existing as the scene. Focusing on the follow-up activity not directly occurring at the immediate scene. The follow-up photographs represent an outgrowth of the crime investigation. Photograph and autopsy, bruises or wounds on the lives victims or suspects are some examples. These are additional photographs will reveal the greater depth of understanding of the activities of the crime scene. In some cases, the taking of extreme close-up photographs are necessary where the evidential trace like fingerprints made of grayish blood or hardened paint which are incapable of lifting technique, tool marks, or unmovable objects, and other minute objects. Perspective or camera position. Scenes crime scene photographs are designed to present to a viewer of the areas as would have met the eye of an average observer. The procedure for taking the photographs is straightforward. It must have a good perspective, or simply stated, the size and distances of the perspective in the photograph must convey a normal impression to the average viewer. Lenses. Two lenses are usually sufficient at the crime scene. A wide-angle lens and normal lens, very seldom that a telephoto lens is needed. A macro zoom lens is the most ideal for crime scene work. Lighting. Usually existing room lights, daylight, and artificial lights may be satisfactory for taking photographs of crime scene. However, because of a wide variety of lighting condition in different areas of a room, there is a need for a supplemental or additional lights, while the use of photoflood lamp to add illuminations to a room or a scene is something considered, yet it is often impractical because of electrical cords can get along the field of view of the camera, can impede free movement within the scene, and setting it up is often time consuming. Rulers or measuring device. Rulers, yardstick, and tape measures can show relative size and distance between objects. It can shows the degree of the magnification reductions of the final print. These rulers must be placed beside the subject. In the case of fingerprinting and handwritings, they are usually placed at the base to maintain uniformity of locations photographs that will be used for compression chart. Number 2. Identification data. The small signs usually placed at the scene, but its data shall be limited to the date, time, location, and case or job number. Number 3. Location marks. These can be tricks or numbered sign or show specific locations or small object not readily seen in the overall photograph. In selecting a marker, avoid using an article which resemble an object that is originally found in the scene. In placing these markers mentioned above are exercise that they will not obscure, conceal, or interfere with any significant part of the subject. This is usually practice of some investigations of practicing chalk marks, pointings or bullet holes or tiny object that The scene should be avoided until all photographs without it finish. Photographs log. When responding to a case record of a data regarding the circumstances surrounding and related to the picture taking of a crime scene must be noted to the instant collection. Usually these informations written to a notebook are transferred to the original request form where the negative will be eventually be attached before entering the file. This will be facilitate the search and retrieval of the negatives when needed for recopy or for court presentation. This will likewise establish the chain of position of the original negatives and photographs print. Here are some informations needed. Specific crimes. Here are some suggestions of what photographs to take on the following common crimes. Again, we remind you that guidelines on the subject is nature of the offense and the elements of crime. Number 1. Homicide or murder. Since the investigations of death has a wide variety of forms, photographs should be provide informations concerning the manner and the cause of death of the victim. Cause of death. A. Crimes involving firearms. In case where firearms was used in the commission of a crime, the work of the photographer is more difficult and complex. The taking of photographs must be consultations and advice of the forensic, ballisticians, and medical legal officer. From the ballistician of opinions to determine the distance at which the firearm has apprehended fired and other issues relating to the trajectory. Hanging. In death, apparently due to hanging, doubts sometimes exist whether the circumstance of homicide, suicide, or accidental. The original position of the body is prime importance. Naturally, the necessarily administering first aid measures offers result to complete change of the original positions. If the body was found undisturbed to the photograph that will help determine the manner of death. It is the overall overviews of the body, rope taken to the torso to the foot, show the length of the body to the ground. It is said that murderer usually tries to raise the body completely while the suicide frequently does not get feet clear to the floor, sometimes found sitting in a half-prone position. Photographs should also show relative position of the object such as chair, tool, which appear to the kick from other feet to the case. Close-up shots are not its size, type, and the location of the neck, deep to the location of the groove. The neck, back, and blue marks along to the groove use the color film is advised. Signs of violence about the neck, prostrations, and tongue or bending of hands or feet. For indoor scenes like photographs or marks of bullets, of impact of the walls or other solid subject from the point of fire, take pictures of the height bullet holes or the floor, its distance to the adjoining walls. Close-up photographs of bullet holes will scale, one without possible determinations of the caliber or a weapon. Recovered bullets cartridges or shell of the walls furnitures. For outdoor scenes, photographs should be taken to show possible long trajectory or ricochet angle of the directions of fire from many possibilities like shootings from other bullets or behind the tree structure from vehicle or moving the list of other possibilities. Droning. In droning, case of the body is usual. The object of interest since the crime scene itself is uncertain except to the locations of where the body was found, floating or snug. Photograph the whole body both from standing observer position from the ground level position. Close-up shots should show any form of mouth and mouth whether open the closed ones, if any particular markers, usually discolorations, articles found in the hand or clothing are used. Color films is also advised. Electrocution. In case of death, the electrocution, the usual photographs are taken in the area of scene, particularly the cause of current flow, or from the electrical connection where the shock could have originated, like exposed wires, crack, insulation, presence of water near or surrounding of the body, the accessibility of mental features to the diseases, original position of time of shock, or etc. Explosion. In case of explosion, take photographs that will help determine whether the explosion is direct against property, against person, or both.